Oh, are you able to let Krista in?
Yeah, 1 second.
Sorry, I know you're doing a bunch.
All right, let me get that over there.
They're all there.
Yeah, looks like we're all here.
Woo!
Okay, let's see
We
how
did
that looks
it.
here.
Okay, I'm just waiting for Restream.io to show up on my personal page, and we are gold. Welcome.
I got the Twitch notification.
Okay. Can we just get a quick mic test for the two new guests that just came in?
Hello?
Okay, I can hear you, Krista and Skylee.
Okay.
Can you talk, Skylee?
Yeah,
okay.
I can.
Perfect. All right, both of you sound great.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So, all right. So now that being said, I'm just going to hit mute on everybody, and I should be able to unmute you once we're done the musical port. So.
Okay.
Oh yeah, FYI, looking at it on Twitch right now, and the screen, like the image, looks fine. I think it's just making the intermission screen like trash.
Oh, right.
So it looks
okay.
good.
Great. I'm glad. All right. So far, so good. All right. I'm just going to mute everybody here.
Okay.
to the CC Show with sounds by DJ Seith. My name is DJ Seith. Thank you so much for joining us today. We got a special show for you today. We got Krista Bissiallon. Special guest Danielle Moore. And Skylee-Storm, y'all. Thanks once again for joining us here on twitch.tv/ccandseith. We're going to get the show started real soon. Oh, yeah. Without further ado, I present to you episode 1 of the CC Show, and I give it up to my special host, CC. Take it away.
Awesome. If everyone's unmuted, and can we make sure we're on gallery view for the viewers?
We are.
Welcome. If your camera is not on, you're more than welcome to turn it on now. Thank you, Seith, for that stellar intro. I really got vibes here and gave me a chance to share on the social medias. So today is Saturday, June 27th, 2020, and it's the first episode of the CC Show featuring sounds by DJ Seith. We welcome our special Voices for Change guests. Our panelists, we have Krista, Danielle, and Skylee-Storm here with us today. I just wanted to let everybody out there watching know that I'm coming from Boating. Right now I'm live from downtown Sault Ste. Marie. Boating is in the Robinson-Huron Treaty area, and it's also the home to Shingwalk Residential School. We are neighbored by Batchewana First Nations, Garden River First Nation, as well as Missinaubi Cree First Nation. So I just wanted to take a time to acknowledge the land, the people, and the truth of this area as we go into our first episode. You can catch us bi-weekly on Twitch, www.twitch.tv/ccandseith, or find us on social media. Our first topic today is working women during quarantine and national crisis. I'm your host, Cece, and we have our co-host and music director, DJ Seith.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Cecilia Trahan, better known as Cece, Jabwejagan, or Magical Being. I'm Bear Clan, and like I said, I'm from downtown Sault Ste. Marie, and I am the host or the co-host of this show, and I will let my co-host introduce themselves.
Okay, hello. Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Yes, my name is DJ Seith. I am a practicing disc jockey and turntablist who has been residing in the Algoma district for the better part of his life. I moved here in the mid-90s after being born here and moving away. And I grew up around music. I loved especially like a lot of hip-hop growing up as a kid. And yeah, I just love to collect records and play music and enjoy, sharing music with everybody else. And I'm so glad to be on this show and contributing my talents to the show. So thank you.
Great. So let's dive in. We have an hour and we picked a pretty loaded topic for the first one. So I just wanted to start with introductions. And I had Danielle introducing themselves first. Danielle, are you able to introduce yourself?
Hi, Ani Bojo Tanse Wache. My name is Danielle Moore. A lot of people know me as D Fox. I am Bear Clan. I'm a member of Batchewana First Nation. However, I have grassroots on Pipot First Nation in Saskatchewan. I work as a mental health and addictions counselor. I've worked in the field for 9 years. I'm a proud mom to 4 children, 4 wonderful children. Hi, if you're watching. And I'm really excited to be on the show, so thank you for having me.
Miigwech for coming and being our brave first Voices for Change panelists. It's so important. Krista, can you introduce yourself, please? Oh, are you muted? Please, can we unmute Krista?
Thanks. I don't know how that happened. Skylee's also muted, so I don't know. Synergy of the universe. So I'm Krista Bissiallon. I'm also calling in from downtown Sault Ste. Marie. I wear a bunch of hats in the community, but folks might know me from Nordic, just because I've been there for like what seems like eons. I've been there for a long time. And I don't know how deep I should go into. My favorite color is purple. My favorite food is cupcakes. That's me for now.
All about that cake. And Skylee, or if we could have some help unmuting Skylee, could you please introduce yourself? There we go.
All right. My name's Skylee-Storm. I am a historian based right now in Ottawa, Ontario. I'm a bit of a nomad. My dad is from Ganawage First Nation, which is only about 2 hours away from me, which is great. But I actually grew up in Toronto with my mom's family, and they're actually from Newfoundland. So I got a bit of everything, and I spent a long time actually up in Sault Ste. Marie. I left in 2018 after being there for about 4 or 5 years. So it's a place that I also call home.
Yes. Miigwech, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming and introducing yourselves. Yeah, your voices are so valued here. Now that we know a little bit about who we all are, let's jump into the topic. So the first guide question I kind of had, and these are just guides, we'll probably take this on a whirlwind. And if folks have any comments that they want to leave for us at the end, they can email us at ccandseith@gmail.com. But yeah, how are you earning income in your current state? But feel free to take the mic and we can kind of build off of each other.
Well,
Okay.
I work as a research consultant, so I actually have a master's in history. And what I do all day is I research various contracts for different organizations across Canada. And I do genealogy and some historical research in different areas in Canada for either traditional land use studies, oral histories, sometimes for the Métis Nations in different areas of Canada. So a very diverse set of work. I even work sometimes on documentary pictures and research for feature films.
So I was working for a First Nation, and so when the COVID kind of hit back in March, we were all coming up to like the end of contracts. So they've just decided not to renew any contracts right now until everything's over. So I am proudly sitting on EI and just being mom, and it's been a bit of a change, but it's nice. It's nice.
Absolutely.
I'm based out of the university, so when COVID first started, when it really got real, the university closed, and in there I'm a project manager at Nordic Institute. So all of our my work is really events based, and suddenly no one can really get together for the foreseeable future. So I was left just kind of like thinking about hypotheticals that can happen in the future, and somehow, and I'm really grateful, but somehow still getting paid for that, you know what I mean? Just doing this kind of like rudimentary work from home. But out of that evolved what's the main thing on my plate right now, which is supporting women identified folks who want to start social enterprises, especially in response to all of the just like storm that's created in a lot of people's worlds since COVID. So in the end, it turned into some interesting work, but it was definitely out of a place of desperation for a lot of folks, which is like not that fun.
Yeah, I feel like my life kind of evolved. Like COVID-19 made me have to kind of work from the point I'm at. So I do a lot of from home based work, working for Northern Lights Collaborative and being a part of Young Leaders Circle. But I do also have a frontline job as a residential youth worker. And so I've seen like a significant impact in young people and the way their lifestyles have changed and really how they've been boxed in. So like taking some of that home, kind of just the overall grief that everyone is feeling has been new since COVID hit. And then with the home base, like Krista was saying, it was much like event-based work that I was doing. However, we were able to, on our teams, create a bunch of like online workshops. So we did the New Shining Moon workshops in April. So we did 40 workshops and had over 20 Young at Heart facilitators from across Canada. So we were able to do that. But I do definitely feel for folks that are having to adapt, not having that like ability to take their work home in that way. So that naturally brings me to the next question of how has this COVID-19 and quarantine changed the way that you're providing for yourself and your family? So that kind of just like builds on our last question of earning. Perhaps this kind of reminds me of what Dee was saying, how she's changed her ways.
I think just like in terms of earning, like EI, you do take like you go from a salary to getting what you paid into with your EI payments on your check, and it is a significant cut. So like I'm actually accessing different different resources within the city. So my daughter's involved with Nagda-Windaman with their mental health program. And so they come in and drop off food boxes for us. So that's a resource. And then at the IFC, the Indian Friendship Center, they have like food days. So we go down and get like food there. So like I've had to become resourceful in the sense that I have 4 mouths to feed on top of my own and a dog, right? So I am becoming a little bit resourceful in that way. And then just becoming like a little bit more creative in how I'm saving money and how I'm paying my mortgage. And so it's new. It was a little bit frustrating, but I have like a really supportive group of people that I'm working with. So I'm super excited about that.
That's awesome. Oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, it's totally cool. Can I just get Seith to unmute Sky? Please and thank you.
She's in like the audio prison.
And we're live. So.
Okay. I just something Dee said like really prompted something in my mind when she said the word creative. I've been finding that a lot of folks around me have been really digging into their creativity to keep their households and themselves kind of like sane and safe through all of this. I read somewhere that COVID was probably a conspiracy by like sentient sourdough bread, just because everyone was like suddenly baking sourdough bread.
All the yeast was gone.
yeah. But to answer the question, I found myself like kind of begrudgingly cooking like so much stuff. Just like this really showed me how much kind of like waste goes into my everyday way of life, and how I interact with like the food that I cook like for myself and for my partner. My brother's a little less wasteful, so kudos to him for that. But just all of the like water usage that goes into constantly doing dishes and like all of the food waste. Because in the beginning especially, I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna get back to the grocery store, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just gonna make large amounts of food. And then that was a learning experience because like it went bad. And like, who wants to eat 4-day-old pasta? No one.
Or chicken. No
or
one.
Chicken, yeah. So that was just like, that was definitely kind of a shift in how I'm better at it now. At how I like, I guess what I'm saying is like manage a household, which is a thing that I never really paid attention to before now.
Especially when you're working too, and it's like you can go get like a coffee.
Exactly.
You can go get like your breakfast.
Yeah.
And you can go get your lunch or whatever, and the only thing you're worrying about is dinner, right?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's like you have all these meals to cook and like all this food in your fridge that you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like I just learned what cilantro was.
Yeah.
So definitely have to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't realize how much you're using at home, like you said, just like with the water, like constantly doing the dishes and just like, it's crazy. It's wild.
Everybody's home all day, so my hydro bill definitely went up. That's real.
Yeah, I've also been cooking a lot. I cooked a lot before the pandemic. If I know that Cece and Krista have been following that for years. I'm a bit with all of the stuff I make at home. I'm living right now around the corner from my office, and I really wish that my workplace was more comfortable with remote work, or that my work really lent itself more to remote work, because it's expensive to live here. I'm actually joining you from a one-room studio apartment that I actually give a lot of my income to. And that when COVID-19 started, I took a reduction in hours for about a month or 2 months. And that really made me realize how much I'm actually spending on my location. And the food here, the downtown grocery stores are incredibly expensive. When we drive out of the city, when we can, it's a bit cheaper, but you can't really do that all the time. And I've noticed a very steep increase in the price of a lot of things, especially locally. I mean, lucky where I don't have to worry about too many people like feeding them and all of that. However, it's just like I can only imagine what it's like for a lot of people in my community right now who like aren't fortunate to keep working through the pandemic and have to worry about all of this, like caring for young people and caring for children, caring for a family. It's incredibly stressful. And I've seen a lot of my colleagues actually have to leave the city and move away. I don't work in an Indigenous specific job, so it's not like, you know, I'm seeing that side of things all that often. I do hear about it through my work with Young Leaders Circle, but like the heritage field has been incredibly hit right now. A lot of my friends have had to move in with their parents if they can, or work at the grocery stores, or take jobs doing landscaping, and it's been incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that, just as far as like what the financial impact is, especially on like super young entrepreneurs. But then we have like families out there too that like, so when I shop for my family members who are immune compromised, so I don't want to send them out right now. I have to choose the grocery store that has the least expensive food, that also has the longest line. So if folks are dealing with any physical or mental disabilities or barriers, they're standing for long periods of time at the stores that have the least expensive food, right? And they have to shop there because of their budget. So the time that it takes is almost like a luxury, right? So like, if I want to pick up some beans for my chili and I want to go to Metro and stand there and pay like $1 more for my item, then I can. But folks who don't have a vehicle and have a smaller budget and are only being paid once a month are having to suffer in that way, right? And then I can't even imagine like I'm able to still go to the grocery store, every other week or even once a week if I choose to put myself in that risk. Some folks are, have to shop once a month, have a ride once a month, figure out what they're going to buy. So they're going to have fresh produce for a week, and then for the other 3 weeks they're eating, whatever they can preserve in their cupboards or their freezers, right? So I can't imagine. And I've also like run into in the community folks who like their appliances have broke down and appliance stores are not open, and their freezer, all their meat is, unthawing, and they're unable to, keep that food. And who's stepping in right now when everyone's working at home to help them, get an appliance, or as far as organizations, it's taking a few days, so everything's kind of delayed in that way, especially when you're trying to do that community work. So I just feel grateful. And then I guess that we'll get into like a little bit at another layer, because there's so many layers going on for folks right now. And the next question I had was, how does the current state of crisis, police murders, and racism impact your livelihood, how you do business, and your daily life? So it's a pretty loaded question, but it's a pretty loaded time. It's a heavy time.
I think we come from, like, as Indigenous people, we come from a marginalized, oppressed group of people to begin with. But then add being Indigenous, and then add being a woman on that in society. And I really have been following the systemic racism, and I've been following what's been going on with like the Black Lives movements and the police shootings, not only in the States, but here in Canada, like the wrongful arrests and stuff like that. And I just really, really think that there needs to be more people calling for policy changes within the police, law enforcement. And when we look at systemic racism, we're looking at something that's been designed. This hasn't just happened in the past 100 years. This hasn't just happened in the past 200 years. This has happened for centuries and centuries. It's been developed for centuries and centuries by doctors and lawyers and professors. This is something that was built, and we need to dismantle it. And you know, some people are like, oh, social justice warriors. You know, sometimes that's all that we can do right now. Like, I myself have lupus. I'm immune compromised. I can't go out and do rallies. I can't go out as much as I would love to be out right now. I would love to go do that. So I use my social media platform as like a place where I can have some voices and at least spark some discussion and thoughts for people. Excuse me. But it's been stressful, and I literally had to stop commenting and stop reading for a couple of days just because it was so heavy on my heart. To see all of that, it was just heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with all of that. It's been kind of I mean, I think some of the common work that we've been involved in, we've been having these conversations for like almost an entire decade, like in kind of the youth spheres that we've been happening. So it's really both troubling and interesting to see people thinking about it for the first time now, when it's taken, you know, like a dozen deaths. We should have been thinking about this collectively a lot earlier. Not just, it's always on the young folks, right? It's always on the young people to kind of like stir shit up. But to answer the question directly, as I mentioned earlier, I'm working on a project that's a collaborative across parts of Canada, but mostly concentrated in Ontario. And there's this massive tension in some of the conversations that we have. Whereas, you know, social entrepreneurship is really like rooted in capitalism, and as much as we want to say that it's like an alternative to the mainstream, it's still at the bottom, at the like very core of things about making a livelihood. So that's kind of what propels the conversations. But when you go into those kinds of meetings after, you know, hearing about another Indigenous person killed by the police, and like that's what you're thinking about, and you're not wanting to think about like you know, like outcomes and stuff like that. It's just like this crazy tension, and then especially on teams where there aren't a lot of Indigenous folks, in the way that I like do business and work, like suddenly there's kind of like this expectation for you to comment on it or like tell folks that they're not racist and those kinds of things, and like answer questions that are completely Googleable. That's definitely
Right?
yeah, that's definitely yeah, that I kind of go into some convos like reading the Zoom rooms, I guess, not the physical rooms, but just like already bracing myself for like the questions that I know are gonna come. So I guess like in terms of how I do business and my relationship to work and how all of this is happening is like there's a added level of, I think, anxiety that hasn't existed before. Because whenever the conversation of police comes up, it's so polarizing between like our communities who have been like disproportionately affected by police brutality and the rest of the world. So.
I have a question. So like when you're talking with like other people at the tables that like you sit on, what kind of questions are people asking that you said are Googleable? Like
they're like they're the kinds of questions I get are like what does systemic racism even look like? Or like, why didn't they just follow the commands of the officers and that kind of stuff? Always there's like,
You mean white fragility?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I was about to say that and I wasn't sure if I should, but it is white fragility. And I think it's like, it's almost like an ignorance that's just like embedded in is white people, and because they've never ever had to have an indicator. As us as people of color, like we have an indicator. So in books and in movies, it's the Asian firefighter and it's the African American dancer, and but you never hear it's like the white writer. Like we've always had an indicator on us, and I think people don't understand that. Like it's just white fragility is massive. And it's like, well, I'm not racist.
Yeah.
All lives matter. But no, you don't get it though. All lives do matter.
Yeah.
But right now it's Indigenous lives, and right now it's the problems within the Black communities and within the Indigenous communities.
And re-explaining that is so exhausting when, you know, I'm scared to take a drive sometimes with, you know, my Indigenous teams that I work with, because if I get pulled over, like suddenly I'm scared to be pulled over by police officers, right? Like suddenly I'm scared to have that interaction, to be, you know, in a public place, you know, with myself or other Indigenous folks, and to be, you know, marginalized like that. And I just wanted to hear, sorry, I don't want to cut anybody off, but I can see storm brewing over there.
Well, I mean, my dad got out of jail last year after being there for pretty much most of my life. And my cousins work in corrections as Indigenous liaisons with the community, and also working with different men from Northern Quebec. And, you know, kind of finding out that, like, he didn't really have to be there that long, or, like, certain things were really mishandled, or, like, you know, there was issues surrounding it, or even, like, looking at people when I'm going to work who are on the street and, like, seeing the way that people treat them is incredibly infuriating on a daily basis. And while I'm often not coded as Indigenous, often, very often, I look like my mom. And you know what, like, it pisses me off because people, they don't code me, so I get a lot of the back talk of, like, when somebody makes a comment about something being racist in a lineup, someone will turn around to me and be like, oh, here we go. Or, like, somebody French will say to me, like, here we go, like, the color car, they're gonna start pulling this. And then it's just like, I lose my shit quite often in Ottawa. People ripping down Black Lives Matter posters, blocks from me in the Glee, very white, very rich neighborhood. And, you know, it's just this dissidence of people who care and then people who don't. It pisses me off because I come from both sides, and I kind of see, like, the attitudes of a lot of people in that community. And 2 years ago, I graduated from Algoma and the Law and Justice program, and my main takeaway, my main research paper, my major research paper was about the abolishment of the prison system, because I was very angry for what happened in my family. Generations of men in my family have been arrested for very minor things, like trying to provide for their families or get ahead. And, you know, it's not something we need to do. Looking at the statistics, looking at how people criminalize behaviors, criminalizing behaviors is the ultimate gatekeeping. It's the way that they get people into the prisons. And my dad was being forced to make things, do stuff that, you know, paid him maybe like 10 cents an hour or something stupid, or $1 an hour it went up to after the late 90s. And I mean, it's just like, that's gross.
That's so gross. You took it right from my lips.
It's gross that people are making money off of this. They're making money off of incarcerated people who are incarcerated for doing things for themselves that, like, you know, society had let them down. And I just, as a law major and as somebody who's, like, really looked into this, is just like, people are up to it now, and it's incredibly stressful, because, like, I have these moments every day where my coworkers often forget, or, like, even friends of mine often forget that I'm Indigenous. So they'll say to me, like, can you believe this? And it's like, yeah, I have an idea.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're discovering. Like, wow, it's so surprising, isn't it? It's like, no, Oka happened 30 years ago. There were people who couldn't leave my reserve until about, like, 1993, 1994. Talking to people, you know, the barbed wire fences only went down in 96. I was talking to elders back in February when I was visiting, who were taken because the RCMP and the Sécurité Québec were coming in to remove people from the tracks, and they were scared that they were going to close down the community again. They're telling me about running pregnant women to the hospital down the canal on boats, being chased by armed police, and like trying to get fresh food into the community because they were withholding food shipments to our people, and people were incredibly stressed and scared and suffering PTSD. And people come at you like this is like they're just discovering this, like I can't believe what's going on, and it's like
racism.
yeah.
What?
And it's like look it up, it's all there, you can Google it, it's all there.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me that like because I'm also mixed race, I come from like an Irish background also, that like I'm not native enough to feel discrimination, or that I never felt racism.
So, I mean, like, we get it a little less. We get it less in general, all the time, everywhere, every place. And we're automatically accepted as Indigenous when we let people know that, because they see light-colored Indigenous people so often that it's an accepted thing. But I'm really feeling right now for our Afro-Indigenous brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Because, you know, they face anti-Blackness not only in the white communities, but they face it at home too. And it's incredibly important that we start recognizing them as a part of our communities. And our plight as light-colored Indigenous people is never going to be the same. And
it perpetuates colorism, and that's exactly what it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those intersectionalities are important to recognize. And I think even now, I wanted to point out too, as we're wrapping up June, being Afro-Indigenous and or identifying as LGBTQ or anywhere on that spectrum, it's a heavy load to carry in the world around us right now, right? It's something to recognize and give kudos to their strength and resilience during this time. Being alive.
Like any extra money I've had, I've gone into trying to buy t-shirts, artwork, beading, anything that I can on the virtual space or the marketplace to try to support Indigenous creators through this time, because it's really important.
Yeah, it's also a time, I think, for us as Indigenous folks, and as there's such a deep, like, for a lot of us, like white passing as well, is to really like be quiet and learn from our Afro-Indigenous kin out there, because there's, I think, a lot of really messed up anti-Blackness even in Indigenous communities. I mean, the whole world is built in a kind of anti-Black lens, but for us, I think that there's like especially a lot of like insidious just kind of like appropriation and lessening of identities that's messed up, and we need to do better.
Yeah, I just want to even I do a lot of work with music and in the hip hop community, and like hip hop is so much from Black culture, and is so kind of appropriated in that way, or that we've borrowed it, or that they've shared that culture with us. So I see that a lot too, just like with musicians that are deep into a culture, but not fully understanding and still using terms like all lives matter, and still using derogatory terms in their music when they're borrowing so much of their livelihood from the Black community and the Black struggle. So just like Black hip hop artists and Black folks that paved the way for folks to be involved in that art form.
People who are racist and like hip hop at the same time make no sense.
It's an oxymoron, right?
I've never understood that, ever understood that. To know the history of hip hop, and like to even just do even a cursory search on the origins of it and everything. I mean, it was like basically, I would say it's like party resistance music. Their entire neighborhoods were burning. They were literally burning down buildings in the 60s because it was more profitable to burn the buildings than it was to rent them. And there were people living in those environments, and their means of protest was to basically plug into public power and have a party. And that was what it was. It was block parties, and that's where it started. And it was Black, led, and it was organized all entirely by the people of the community, and it was just a way for them to kind of come together and kind of try to make sense of all of this injustice that was happening around them.
It was very political too, though. Like a lot of the lyrics and stuff, it was very, very political. The origins of hip hop,
Absolutely.
Like all the lyrics and stuff, it was very, very, very political.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how a lot of young Black men would have their voices heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, anybody that's practicing hip hop today should be at least like, they should definitely do the knowledge, find out about that awareness, read a book, read Can't Stop, Won't Stop by David Chang, Jeff Chang, sorry. And find out about how far back it goes. It goes back to like the 30s even, if you think about it. There's definitely like traces of that led up to what we now call hip hop today. Everybody sees it as this big thing, but it started so small,
What's that, Sky?
I TA'd a course last year on the history of American popular culture while I was at Western. It was my placement. And I really enjoyed that course because you can see the root of Black music in every single genre of music. You can see the root of Blackness in every genre of entertainment. They have given us art and culture for the past 400 years. And I think that they need more credit. They need more Black spaces in entertainment. And I think that we all need to be a lot more conscious on the history of our entertainment. And so, yeah, he's totally correct. Like, pick up a book. And I know that there's a lot of great books out right now on the history of Black America written by Black folk themselves. And it's really important to seek out those sources and make sure that that's what we're reading from Black folk themselves. It's incredibly important.
Yep, absolutely.
We're calling you in, folks. Come to the table. Come to the learning table. Yes. And yeah, we kind of took that in that direction. Is there any final thoughts as far as like hip hop music or how police brutality and global crisis and racism has affected you?
I feel like it all goes back.
Anybody's thoughts.
Sorry, yeah, I feel like it all goes back to that thing again. Just like Google it. Stop relying on people to tell you the story, or to just like willfully ignore it.
I don't do a lot on Facebook because like Facebook is mostly for my family and they don't need to be re-traumatized every 5 minutes. But share a lot on Twitter or like sometimes on Instagram because it's a lot of like my coworkers. And a lot of people I find take it really well from me because of my color positionality. Just because like I think it's important for me to educate other white folks. Darker folks don't have to do it because I don't think that that's fair. And you know what? And I benefit a lot from mainstream society, so I'm often okay taking that on or taking on those harder conversations. I don't ever try to speak from a position of color because I don't know what that feels like, and I will never know what that feels like. But I always direct people, to like read those voices and listen to those voices. And if you're ever called out, like honestly, fucking listen. Don't try to like defend where you're coming from or like clarify your intentions or whatever. It's like, no, you did something wrong. Like just stop.
Absolutely.
Yes, you don't need to justify that you're a good person either, or the good things that you're doing to support like Black and BIPOC people in general. Like, I don't need a parade of tokenism of like what you've done. Please just do it. Right. So that's important. And I just wanted to move into, I wanted to talk a little bit about alienation because just given what's going on with quarantine, and yes, we're all isolated in that way, but then we add the layer of work, and then we add the layer of like fear, I guess, around, or I've described myself, I have a bit of fear around racism and police brutality. And then suddenly we're on this island because we have all these intersectionalities that are going on. So for those who don't know what alienation is, it can be described as a condition of workers in a capitalist economy, resulting from the lack of identity with the products and the labor, or the sense of being controlled or exploited. So that's like a Marxist theory of alienation, just talking about how we're disconnected from our work and alienated from our worthiness and our connection to how we're producing or how our labor is put out. So it's a loaded question, but how has all of these layers contributed to alienation in your life?
I'm having immediate thoughts of when COVID first started happening, and like long before. Well, no, I don't want to say long before. That's not true at all. I was gonna say long before the racial struggle, but like that's been happening for years. But
beginning of time.
That's the beginning of time. Yeah. That's not what I meant to say. But yeah, when COVID was, I think, at the forefront of everyone's minds, I'm thinking of when suddenly everyone like jumped into high gear of productivity. Folks were like, like working out, creating stuff, holding down their work from home jobs, getting like side contracts and stuff like that. And I was like, I am struggling to respond to like this single email. I was just not productive at all. I was like, suddenly my perspective had kind of shifted from being like that like good and reliable worker to like something totally different. I just like didn't care anymore. I was finding it like harder and harder to connect to the purpose of like my job, like my conventional job, and it was kind of an alienating experience because other people were just doing it and I just couldn't. And then I think as time actually as time extended, I actually like fell into a better comfort with it. So I was able to start to kind of like see that other people were feeling the same way, and other people were trying to create other kind of realities, and that's what called to me more than just like the serving capitalism, was like this idea of rebuilding the world now. And I think that really struck home for me. Cece, you'd mentioned that NLC had kind of been at the forefront of that, of creating these like online spaces for people to come together in a different way, like was so different, and have these like almost bizarre conversations with each other, which like made me feel productive in a different way, in a way that wasn't like worshiping outcomes and strategies and design principles and all of those things. But I think I already spoke on alienation in the other sense, and the like having those discussions about police brutality and Indigenous communities being over policed, so alienating. But that can be another like 12-hour conversation.
A whole segment, yeah.
Yeah.
How are we feeling?
I don't know. I feel alienated sometimes. I'm the only Indigenous person who works at my office, and up until actually a couple days ago, there's actually a Métis woman who works in my office as well, but she actually has decided to go do something else, which is really great. She's awesome, but I mean, I live only 2 hours away from Ganawage, and so I was going there before the pandemic quite often because I was working on a project, and I was also kind of looking at photos with my family, and we were kind of going through the old family home and stuff like that, because like some of the elders in my family are now like getting to that age where they're starting to pass away, and they're in homes. We're trying to make sure that everything gets preserved. So I was spending a lot of time there and really connecting with my cousins, and kind of like having that support throughout the weeks and without the months. And then my community decided to close down to keep everybody safe, which they needed to do. Montreal were coming in often, and it was dangerous. So they had to close. And so I haven't gone there at all since that time. And I also haven't seen my mom's family in the GTA. So it's been difficult. But I feel alienated sometimes because, you work with non-Indigenous people and stuff like that, and sometimes you feel a bit removed from what you care about, and you care about different things sometimes than other people do. So it's just weird, lonely.
I've faced alienation here, like in the community. So I'm a 60 scoop survivor. And
Wow.
I've never like really been to like the reserve that I was registered to. So when I got married to my husband, my ex-husband now, we band transferred so that we're all from Batchewana First Nation. So I've actually faced discrimination, and I've heard some things like, she's not even a member, she's a band transfer. So like I've had that type of rhetoric thrown at me, to the point where it's like, if I want to have some voices of what's happening within the community, like in a political sense, it's like, well, she's not even like really a member. Like, where do you have a right to say anything? But yeah, so I've had that within the community, like on myself. That's kind of hard for me.
Yeah, I'm so sorry you're experiencing that. Especially you have such a strong, powerful voice, and I'm so grateful for the work that you do for our community.
Yeah, and it's been I let it roll off now, like water off a duck's back. But like, and as for alienation, just like in the working sense since COVID, like my mental health has just taken like a complete hit, where like I'm now like, and I'll be completely transparent because I think people need to like break the silence on mental health. Like yeah. I'm like in Ativan, and I'm taking antidepressants now, and I'm taking sleeping pills because like my whole life just completely changed, where you're working 9 to 5 and you wear different hats in the community and you're being productive and you're so full of, you know, you're just so used to labeling yourself as, okay, I'm in a mental health and addiction counselor, I work for Nordic, this is what I do, blah, 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 blah. But then what are we outside of that?
Mm-hmm.
When that's taken away, what are we? And I've had to struggle with that to kind of figure out who I am. Like, what kind of mom am I now? Like full time, like, can I sit at the table and do math homework and not get angry because they changed everything for math? And, you know, like, am I able to keep a clean house? And it's just like my mental health and my anxiety has been like completely heightened. And I'm really just trying to refigure out like who I am outside of work and outside of the tables that I sit on. And what makes me me, and doing like a lot of self-exploration. So it's been harder too, because like, again, like I said, I'm immune compromised. Like I have lupus. So like I sometimes have to have someone go grocery shopping for me, or, you know, I'm sitting waiting at home for someone to come and drop off a document for me to sign. So it's just been really, really difficult. And I've like had cabin fever, and it's been a struggle for me. It's been a struggle. Definitely.
Thank you for being brave and sharing those real truths. Because it's not all like skating on a pond through all of this, right? Like there's so many different dips and crevices and ups and downs in this. And I also agree, like just being in the public eye, and I do public speaking and you know, the youth work and all the workshops that we did with Young Leaders Circle and Northern Lights. And then so you know, I'm happy, I'm doing self-care workshops and I'm doing workout videos and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But like, really, I'm just like, I'm sad too. And I can't see my grandma, and I usually work to go drive to Southern Ontario to see her. She's in her 80s. I can't do that right now. She lives in a home. She's, you know, isolated. You know, and then I have a responsibility to social isolate myself because I work with young people and people that could be immune compromised. So I can't just go everywhere that I want to. And, you know, I'm sad and I'm grieving. I lost 2 really important people to me this month, and we're not able to come together to, you know, celebrate their lives. And we're doing online life celebrations, and you know, and then I have this fear of grief of losing people around me and losing that time and that space with them, just people in my regular life, right? So there's a lot of grief and anxiety around time and the ability to spend it, because I'm so isolated and alienated, and I'm still working and eating and doing good, but all of the things that were feeding my soul or that really mattered to me are compromised. So it's definitely difficult. But I don't want to leave us all low. I thank you for sharing your truths, because it's fucking real. For lack of better words, that it's new and it's going to continue to evolve. So do we have closing thoughts? What are our next steps? What are your next steps in this? And do you have any hopeful thoughts? Or, are you feeling otherwise?
I'm hopeful. Young Leader Circle is kind of starting off the year on a really good foot, and we're giving like lots of support and a lot of energy to Black leaders and artists in the GTA. And I'm so happy to see them carry that work out and make something that they want to see happen for their community real. And I'm glad that we can kind of like see that happen, see it unfold, and support it. And that's what I'm really hopeful about. I'm really hopeful to see how YLC can help build more solidarity between communities, more understanding about anti-Blackness and colorism within our communities. And I want to see where those conversations and that support and energy goes in building the future for those conversations.
Oh, I love Young Leader Circle. So good. I'm so grateful for the time we got to spend on that project. But I am probably one of the biggest like sci-fi nerds to ever exist. Most of the content I absorb is like just weird science fiction, and I think that that's kind of like I dream a lot about what's possible now that the world is kind of crumbled and it's some kind of and is scattered in a different way. And I think that it's up to like creative folks who see something beyond it to kind of like rebuild stuff that's not so populistic, fucking racist, heavily policed, all of those things. I think that there's it might take generations, but I think that it's possible. And I think that conversations like this are honestly how revolutions happen. So it's not always about rioting, which good for them, and burning down and tearing down statues and stuff like that.
I was there.
yeah, which is awesome. It's also kind of these quiet places of resistance where things like that happen. So I've been seeing a lot of conversations like this happening, which makes me hopeful. And I'm just like, as bizarre as these times are, I'm really grateful to have come from a place of resilience, because this feels like a global kind of apocalypse, but I've also faced my own kind of like personal apocalypses leading up to this, which made me kind of like okay with it, which is a bizarre kind of feeling, but yeah, hopeful and grateful. I'm really glad to have spent this morning with you, and I can't wait to watch all of the other episodes. So, miigwech to everyone for the insights.
Miigwech. Dee?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm hopeful. I believe that the women are going to be leading the resistance and the youth. So I am really hopeful, and I just want to thank you for having us on here, and every little bit counts. And I believe like you are doing some amazing work, and your idea for this show has been so amazing, because there's so many powerhouses within the community that need to be heard and recognized. And I just want to thank you for having me on the show.
I'll just do a quick thought. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. I'll do a quick thought, and I wanted Seith to be able to give us some hopeful thoughts too.
Absolutely.
But I just wanted to say, as far as hope for the future, that I'm grateful for you all coming on the show and for helping transform or take back this digital online space. I wanted to just give a shout out to Adam Alick, which is a friend of mine who really inspired me to start this show. We recently lost Adam during the COVID pandemic. Not to COVID, he had 22q or DeGeorge syndrome, So he passed from complications from that. But he was an inspiring public speaker who wanted to start his own online television show and had followers from across the globe. So I was grateful to work with him as a mentor, and yeah, so I'm hopeful for this show and hopeful for moving forward and to carry on that legacy. Seith, do you have closing thoughts?
Just kind of expounding on that. I mean, I remember when you came to me and you talked to me about your friend and his idea for a television show, and then I heard the story about everything that happened. It really hit me, and we started talking about like, what if we started a show, and that was like, I want to say that was about a month and a half ago, maybe just a little bit more than that, and here we are, and I just think that that's amazing, and just to see the strength and the resiliency that's happening in this space that we're doing right now is just it's humbling, and I didn't even think I was going to be able to do something like this, working with people and putting a show on. I mean, if you had asked me in February what I'd be doing at this point in time, I'd probably be out playing a festival or playing a show in town or getting ready for something. It's so amazing how quickly things change, and not just that, but I mean, going through all of this uncertainty, I guess, in the world, to see people, find their hope, I guess, and kind of follow that hope and where it leads them is very, very inspiring for sure. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of creative people, coming out of their shell and just starting to really share their creativity with the rest of the world in a way that they never did before because something was holding them back. Oh, it's not time, or, it just really feels like right now it's like the time to really kind of follow your heart. And this is kind of, for me anyway, this is where I felt my heart was going, like to definitely put something together that I could really be proud of, that I could, be part of a whole team. And, yeah, so it's really nice to be part of a whole team and actually do a whole thing like this, and, get everybody together to be able to talk and share their stories. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so shout out to the CC Show team, our angel donor, as well as Taylor Jolyn for doing the artwork. Amazing. You can catch us again on Saturday, July 11th, 2020 at 10:30 a.m. So we're going to be bi-weekly. We will expand on this conversation with some more Voices for Change panelists. In the meantime, as mentioned earlier, you can leave us your thoughts at ccandseith, Seith is spelled SEITH, @gmail.com. And I will close with calling you all to the table. So there's been a lot of divide call outs. I want to call you into the table, audience. Go out and find some knowledge. Get on Google, like we said, find your Black authors that are writing your Black history, find your Indigenous authors that are writing the Indigenous history, even learn about your own ancestry and where your people come from, because that's important too. So I just want to recognize Skylee-Storm, Krista, and Danielle for coming today. Seith, for being an amazing co-host, and we'll leave you at that call in. Bama P, and see you in 2 weeks. Bye. I'm gonna jam out.
Thank you so much. Thanks once again for tuning into the CC Show, everybody. My name is DJ Seith. I'm gonna play you out with some music here. Once again, thank you to Skylee-Storm. Thank you to Krista Bissiallon. And thank you to Danielle as well, too, for joining in the show. We will be back in 2 weeks for some more. Let's get it. Once again, we will be back in 2 weeks' time. See you then, y'all. Yeah.